On today's episode of First Rodeo Radio, we welcome on jockey agent Jose Santos Jr. I've been sitting on this one for almost a month now, so it's a little bit dated in terms of some of the Derby conversation. One of the many jockeys that Jose Santos represents had a horse that was actually scratched the week of the Derby. Kind of just shows the highs and lows of the sport. So this conversation highlights just that. It highlights Jose's journey to becoming a jockey agent, what a jockey agent is, some of the tools that he uses to help himself do his job more efficiently, as well as some ideas to improve the sport. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Jose Santos Jr.
First Rodeo Radio, where the race begins. The homies have reached the starting gate, and they're off.
Welcome to another episode of First Rodeo Radio. Today, we are joined by none other than the CEO of Santos Inc. Agency, Jose Santos Jr. Thanks for joining us, Jose.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This is a ton of fun. I feel like I've been following you on social media for a long time. I feel like you do a great job on there, marketing your riders and the whole 9 yards. Then we ran into each other at Keeneland last September, hanging out with Ray, Morley, Connor, and the boys. And I think I figured out pretty quickly how good your recall is on pulling up random horses, because I introduced myself in the stable and you go, "You guys have a horse I want to get in New York."
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I guess that's the job. I'm always looking at horses and I'm able to retain them. So thankfully I can, because it's a lot to definitely take in, but I enjoy it. So it makes it easy.
It's very, very impressive. I was listening to some old podcasts you had, and you're pulling out, races from when you were 8 years old, naming horses, who they were battling with down the stretch. I think you definitely have, like, I don't know if it's a photographic memory, but it's impressive.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I like when I'm working at home, I'm all I got playing like right now on my TV. I just pause. It's the 1991 Preakness. So just rewatch a bunch of old racing, and I enjoy it. It's my passion.
If there's ever like horse racing trivia, I think you'd open up like -110
Yeah,
probably.
for sure. For, I do need to get down on that for sure.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I think what might be a fun way to start is, I think a lot of people that listen to the podcast or partners in First Rodeo might be very new to the game. They might not know what a jockey agent is. So if you were to pull up to a random, person at Saratoga, it's their first time at the track, they ask you what you do. You say you're a jock agent, and they say, "What's that?" What's your way to define it?
Yeah, so pretty much jockeys are private contractors, and every race is its own private contract. So you all, as the stable, as the owners, employ the trainers, and then you all select a jockey per race. So just because they ride him one race doesn't mean they ride him ever again. So you want to stick with them, especially if it goes well, but it doesn't always go that way. So I'm kind of the in between the trainers and the jockey. The trainer or the owner wouldn't directly go to the rider and say, "Oh, I want you to ride this horse this day." They would go to the agent and kind of book it together. Or the agent would also reach out to connections trying to pick up mounts that they think are going to be live horses for their riders.
Yeah, I think I spent my morning walk today trying to think, is it more similar to the entertainment business, like movies, or more similar to sports? And I feel like it's more similar to entertainment. I feel like it's so independent and it's so fractured. I feel like there's so many spokes to the wheel in horse racing, where I feel like sports is more. I mean, it's pretty rigid. There's 32 teams in the NFL. Like, you're gonna pick one of the 32. Is that accurate, you think?
Yeah, I do. And then there's kind of like the contracts where like teams stay together longer, the teams stay together for more than just the one season. With the race, it's really like a race to race contract. Every once in a while you'll get like, "Oh, I committed to this horse for a couple races on the large level," but I would say it's more like the entertainment industry, especially on my end as an agent, because like I'm essentially trying to get my rider, actor or actress gigs. So I would say it definitely plays that way more.
You gotta do a little entourage spin up at some point for an ad, Penny Rari Gold.
Yeah, 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 that's funny.
Take a paintball gun to the backside one day.
Yeah, funny. It would be similar, just nowhere near as cool of a crew.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a funnier crew, which is hard to beat.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
actually stood next to was it Johnny Drama in the paddock at Keeneland 2 weekends ago.
Wow, that's pretty
I think
cool.
he had a horse running.
Nice, very cool. Awesome to know.
Yeah, it's part of the fun part of horse racing, running to people like that for sure. I think you have a very, very cool way you got into being a jock agent. You're probably one of the few people. I feel like horse racing's the one sport where growing is a bad thing. Most people hit a growth spurt freshman year of high school, and you're jacked up, like, oh, finally I'm taller than all the girls. And it might have been a little bit opposite for you. So take us through the early days of your life being the son of a jock there.
Yeah, it's all I wanted to do. All I wanted to do with my life was be a jockey. Not just my father, but both my grandfathers were jockeys, four uncles, one aunt. So it was always in my mind from a very young age that was my passion. Fortunately, I was really small. I was always one of the smaller kids in my class, so it was a realistic goal, at least in my mind. And then, yeah, freshman year, shot up 7 inches and just kept growing from there. And pretty much just, I say I outgrew the saddle, but Keith and Eric just have unbelievable discipline because they found a way to make it happen. I like to eat too much. I didn't, and I don't like to run either. What they do is incredible. They're really dedicated to it. But yeah, just got too big and ended up playing soccer for a while. And uh, I always loved handicapping, so the agent job really kind of goes after everything I like. I like competitiveness, so I like the relationship with the jockeys. I like handicapping. Uh, I love watching races. It was a. I feel like it's like all my talents into one thing.
Yeah, it's a super, like, cool role when you get into it, and I think you broke it down in previous podcasts for those that are listening. It's typically, like, jock agents get, like, 25% of the commissions of their riders. It's kinda like industry standard, right?
Yes, 25% would be the standard.
It's pretty cool. I think another, like, crazy part of your story, I was folding laundry yesterday, listening, and you were telling the story of Funny Side, and I think that I mean, I got chills listening to that. I mean, you recorded that 3 years ago, so maybe you could take us behind the scenes there of Funny Side. I think the way that your dad got the mount, you can kinda tell that story and
Yeah,
maybe poke
yeah,
us
he
through
got
that.
them out. Yeah, they didn't show up to work the horse. So he was just sitting around and his agent called him and asked if he was around the track and he was able to work him. He was supposed to work him in a minute and he went 57. But he said he thought he went a minute. And the trainer was like kind of freaking out. He was like, don't freak out. This horse, first off, let me stay on this horse. I want to ride this horse and don't freak out. We have a really good horse. And he knew right away. He told his agent that's going to be my Derby horse. And he went on, broke his maiden by 16 and 3/4. Came back and won the Bernard Baru by like 9. Won again. I think it was a Sleepy Hollow after that, and then they did a throat surgery on him, and from there progressed on and was fortunate enough to win the Derby.
Yeah, I think the Derby is definitely the granddaddy of them all in a sense, and I don't know how similar it was back then, but I remember when Brian Hernandez won the Derby, kinda going to the paddock, just hanging out when I was living in Louisville, we were just spinning up First Rodeo, and I would just hang out in the paddock just 'cause it was fun. I like meeting new people in there, and it was pretty crazy the difference between pre and post Derby of the number of people that, A, recognized Brian at all, and then, like, I mean, everyone and their mother wants a picture once to win the Derby. Was it similar for your dad when he won?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. I mean, it stamps your career when you win the Kentucky Derby. When people meet people in horse racing, the very first question they ask them is, "Have you ever won a Kentucky Derby?" So when someone's able to reply yes, it's a huge deal, and people to a lot of people, it's the only race that anybody sees the whole year. I was actually in Louisville last week working, and I was watching a race from Keeneland on my phone while I was ordering food, and somebody was like, "Oh, are they running the Derby this week?" And I was like, "No, it's in a couple weeks." They're like, "Oh, I didn't know they ran any other races besides the Kentucky Derby,"
Yeah.
which I was like, "Crazy." They live in. I was like, "The racetrack's 10 minutes away," and I was like, "You can go 4 months out of the year, Thursday through Sunday, and they're going to be running over there, Churchill Downs." He had no idea. So yeah, I mean, when you've won the Kentucky Derby, it's like Americana, It's like people who've won the Masters, stuff like that. I think.
Yeah, I think That's something that we're trying to change is people only think horse racing is one day out of the year. It is kind of
For
funny. I
sure.
mean, like they market the Triple Crown during the Derby, but the Derby is just its own
Right.
beast. So it is
For
pretty
sure.
cool. And I think you guys have is that your first Derby mount this year with Chris on Right the Party?
It's Chris's first
Okay.
one. This will be my fourth.
Okay.
First one was COVID year at Miguel Mena on Necker Island. My second one was with Raylu on Barber Road in 2022. Then last year, Julian rode Render Judgment for Kenny McPeak, and now Chris is on Right to Party for Kenny. So yeah, it's exciting.
Pretty cool. I was reading
Yeah,
through the story of your both your dads being jocks and then them winning back-to-back derbies is
yeah,
super
it's
cool.
cool
Hopefully,
for
hopefully,
sure. It's
hopefully NBC comes calling does a little feature on it because they could. I mean, it's two very recognizable horses in terms of Funny Side and Smarty. Like Smarty Jones is like the first horse that I remember growing up.
a lot of people say that for sure.
I got
He
it.
was a rock star.
Yeah, he was the man, and it's
I
funny.
was there that day when he won the Derby.
What'd you say?
I was there the day he won the Derby because my dad got fourth on Limehouse. So I remember watching it. It was incredible. He was an incredible racehorse.
Yeah. I just remember, like, I didn't come from a racehorse background, so that was the one race we watched, and we went to Monmouth once a summer too. Then me and my brothers, we started racing our bikes down the road we lived on, and, like, we would name one bike would be
I
Smarty
like,
Jones, and he would always win.
yeah, I like that. I used to do the same things with my friends when I was kids. That's funny.
I wonder if kids still do that now. They're still just glued on their phone. They don't even
I mean,
have
if
that.
they know about horse racing, I'm sure they do. You
Yeah.
know, I put all my friends onto horse racing, so I had them doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think part of maybe you could take us back to when you, like, first moved to Kentucky 'cause you kinda told the story of going to visit Funny Side and all that. Maybe take us through
Yeah.
kind of all right, you hit your growth spurt freshman year, you started playing a little bit of soccer, decided to, I think, go to school to take you to Kentucky, or what landed you there?
Yeah, Soccer's what brought me to Kentucky. I ended up playing at Bellarmine University for my freshman year, and it was just realistically way too close to Churchill Downs because I was I was over there way more often than in class. And yeah, I would get to go see Funnyside because he was over there in Lexington. So any opportunity I got, I went over to the horse park. It was a really special connection, you know, to have him that close. He was pretty much him and my cousin were the only two people I had when I got up there. You know, I had my cousin Lizzie, and she lived in Lexington as well, and Funnyside. So it was really special. It was anytime I you having a bad day or something, you just cruise an hour over to Lexington, go see Funnyside. Made everything better for sure. But yeah, quickly became an agent. Turned 19, started working full time as an agent. I was still going to college and been doing it ever since. I stopped going to school in 2018 and started doing the agent thing full time.
When you first started off, like, what surprised you most when you got into it?
So much. So much surprised me. Really what surprised me the most, honestly, is how hard the trainer's job is. That's what surprised me the most because I really did think I wanted to be a horse trainer, and I just didn't I don't think I have the patience for what it takes to be a horse trainer, honestly. So that was probably my biggest like, wow, that's a way more complicated job than I thought it was. And you know, it's kind of glorified because your name's on the paper, but there's so much work and you're responsible for so many people, responsibilities, bills. That's really what surprised me.
Yeah, it's wild because there's so many different facets of it. There's like you have to market yourself, hustle to get horses, and once you have them, you got to keep people happy, keep them updated. Yeah, you're a CEO of a small business. You're having to like hire grooms, hire hot walkers.
Yeah. Not just managing the horses, managing the people as well, you know, and the changing of how many people come in and out. Like it's a lot to manage and they've got a lot of responsibility on their hands and way they're not protected enough, that's for sure. Not at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. When you were going out, to be a jockey, you decided to stop going to school. Like, what was that? I'm sure there's a lot of things going through your brain at that point. What kind of gave you the confidence to make that leap?
Oh man, it was rough. So in 2017, I went like 3 months without a rider, and my mom. I was still in school. My mom was helping me out, and she actually wanted me to move back down to Florida. She was like, you know, you can go to school down here cheaper. She was going to get me a job on the TV with Gulfstream, which would have been a cool gig. And I was gonna go do it. In November of 2017, David Cabrera called me. I'd never worked with David before at the time. I'd never even heard of David Cabrera, but he called me and I looked him up. I saw he was riding at Remington. He was like, I want to go to Oaklawn. And Richard Aramio, who was another jockey, suggested he call me and he thought we would do good at Oaklawn. I'd worked Oaklawn the couple meets before, but I'd never really done well there before. And the only person I knew at Remington was JR Caldwell. So I called up JR and I asked him, do you know who David Cabrera is? And he said, hang up the phone right now, call him back and tell him you're going to be his agent. And we crushed it. I think we won like 47 races during the meet, got second in the standings behind Santana. It was crazy. And he asked me to go with him to Iowa. So I moved to Iowa for the first time ever and I stopped going to school because what I was doing was I was working at Oaklawn in the winter and I would go to school in the summertime and I was living in Kentucky, like in the fall, I would do summer and fall classes. So when I didn't go back in the summer, I went to Iowa with David. And then from there, we went to Remington, then back to Oaklawn. And then I got back to Kentucky in 2019 working with Mena. And in 2020, COVID happened. That's kind of when I got the ball rolling on like, all right, I'm going to represent a bunch of these people from all over the place. Because I'd had the chance to travel around, like started my career living up in like at Mountaineer a lot. Like I was at Mountaineer a whole bunch early, then Indiana, Churchill, Ellis. So like I started growing it there. And when I went out to Oklahoma, got to meet the Oklahoma and Texas people, lived down to Iowa. So like went to the fairgrounds. So like I started gaining business from all these different places. And I was like, yeah, I can operate all of this from afar. And I was already in the process of doing that. And then when COVID busted open, I was like, all right, I need to run with it right now. And it really changed the way our jobs get done. A lot of it's done through video calls and such. And none of that was the way it was before.
Yeah, I think COVID forced a lot of industries into the 21st century. I think horse racing too. I feel like it probably needs a little bit more of a kick in the butt. But it's wild that it's a crazy sliding door moment from like multiple perspectives there in terms of like, all right, you don't get that phone call, you move down to Florida, you're suffering for TVG. Like you probably would just be on TV like right now, honestly. You might be working
Yeah.
for like
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. It was going to be the Gulfstream simulcast feed, but yeah, that's who knows? Maybe that's what I would have been doing.
yeah.
It is crazy. It's crazy, but I'm very much so not afraid to like jump at opportunities and try my best to make it work out. So like when I had an opportunity to keep doing what I love, I was going to do it. And like when I had the opportunity and I saw it, like, okay, right now is the opportunity where I need to expand and try it like this right now and do something others hadn't done yet. Like I'm not afraid to do those things. I believe that like I'm going to work hard enough to get it out.
Yeah, I think the big thing there too is because you stuck with it and you kind of graduated from the I want to say lower level tracks, but like kind of B tier per structure tracks. It kind of allowed you to really blossom when COVID hit because you had those connections like along all those back stretches. So instead of quitting when the going got tough at the major racetracks, you just put your head down, work the smaller circuits and it all connected when it needed to.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely. And it's all like an interweb. Like the more horses I know, the more gauge of what I'm going to understand, like which horses fit at which places. There's always a place where a horse can win.
For sure. I think that's been a fun thing for myself the last few years. I mean, I started off just following Monmouth. I would just go every Saturday with my little pen and paper and just, play the race with $100 after I got out from like stocking shelves at Costco when I was home from school. So I'd follow Monmouth
Right.
and then like every now and then I'd, get to New York, get my ass kicked and not following the circuit. And now that we're claiming horses, it's kind of fun to like follow the horse through his career. You kind of see horses dipping down, get out of their form cycle, horses all of a sudden finding it again. And like it's the region the regional part of horse racing, I think is a bit slept on. I think it's people talk about like, Linda claiming a bunch of horses at Keeneland and taking them to New York and winning and the whole 9 yards. But I think even the minor moves, like going from tracks that have, the 2-turn mile versus the 1-turn mile and what that could do to, a horse is slept on as well. And I think it's a really cool angle from a handicapper as well as, kind of trying to moneyball the claiming game a little bit too. So maybe you could teach me some free game here of any like fun angles you have of, you know, moving a horse from this circuit to the other one.
For sure, yeah. I mean, when I'm handicapping, to me the most important thing is class lines. You know, who have you run against? What have you done when you ran against them? And then I look for things that they've been successful at, and are they getting an opportunity to do that again?
For sure. So I guess like your essentials there. I know you're on the thorough manager, which I got up now. I'm always on. Now you rely a little bit on ragnar's and sheets as well. What other sort of tools do you kind of have in your toolbox there to help identify horses that you know fit certain conditions?
Watching races, really, like watching a bunch of races. But outside of that, really the thorough manager is where I do most of my time. You know, I'm logged into thorough manager 8+ hours a day outside of the weekends where I'm like watching the races, but it's still at those times like I'm logged in and like looking up what just happened. But like probably like 4 or 5 days out of the week, like I'm logging in 8 hour days plus on the computer. You know, just looking up horses, finding races for them, grouping horses, watching works, replays, all kinds of different stuff.
So what's like so today's like Monday. What's like your typical Monday look like?
Yeah, I went to the track briefly this morning here at Gulfstream, then came home and I had a couple draws. Since I finished those draws, I've just been charting races since we got on here, and I'll do that till about probably midnight today.
Gosh. So
Probably.
when you're charting races, like what like exactly are you doing there? Are you kind of like circling?
Yeah, I go through all the charts like of each racetrack I work at, and even sometimes racetracks that I feel pour into the racetracks I work at, and find the next race. You know, get them all grouped up into the right races. I'll send that off to one of the people who work for me. They'll put that in the condition book for me. Once I've received that back, I'll start handicapping them, and from there, I'll start asking for horses.
That's like I think it's like 3D chess. You're like putting together the hypothetical race before it even draws.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I do it based off of what happened the weeks prior and also the work tab.
The is that like the same thing that a racing secretary does? I need to interview one of those people.
Because they have the information for the horses that are there. Like they know what horses are on the backside because the horses are scanned in. I don't have that information. I have to go through charts to figure that out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like they can do that, but they actually know for sure who's there. I don't know for sure who's there. I'm like guessing essentially based off what's happened before. Like more likely than not, they're not going to leave. But like especially in the Northeast region, like horses can go anywhere. A horse can run at Belmont, then they can run at Monmouth, and they can run at Finger Lakes, and they can run at Parks. You know, a place like Gulfstream, like you know who's around here. You know, we're kind of on an island. Horses aren't coming in and out this time of the year. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing, trying to draw up the races before they happen. And maybe I find a horse that's not around, and I think a race is weak. I can look for a horse out of town, be like, hey, this race is weak. You should come over and run this race.
Yeah, I guess like how often are you kind of like, suggesting races to trainers and how do they I'm sure the different personalities react a little differently to those suggestions.
You know, I used to like do that a lot, and I guess like as times change, delivery on how to like ask for horses improves. I used to like when I asked for horses, I used to ask like with a specific race and stuff, and I feel like I got less responses. So now I just kind of ask about a horse and kind of have an idea of where they're gonna run. You know,
The classic too, it's like you know, if you're talking to somebody that's a little hard-headed and you want them to think it's their idea versus, your idea, you kind of guide them in the right direction.
yeah. On top of it, it's not my horse. You know, it's not my investment. Like, I don't know what you're doing with this horse really. Like, I have an idea, but like to ask for something so direct, I feel like wasn't coming with as much success as I thought it would. The only time it's really worked well is when I've had like the leading rider at the racetrack. Then it worked really good. I'd be like running this race and they'd be like, oh, you'll ride him? I'll ride him. And then they went and we'd win. But when you have, I mean, I think all my riders are pretty, they do pretty well. So, but they're not like the leading rider at the racetrack they're at. So I feel like I kind of have to inquire about horses and not more about spots.
That's fair. It's cool to see a little inside baseball there for sure. I guess, like, in terms of, like, the condition book, that's, like, I think it's a hot topic all the time in terms of, a place where horse racing can innovate a little bit. You're starting to see the Equibase ratings, handicaps come up. I guess, what's your take on the ratings handicap stuff? And then what jurisdiction do you think is doing the best job right now in terms of getting creative with the conditions there, right?
I think New York got pretty good with the conditions they wrote this winter. They started riding a race I liked a lot, which was the New York Bred Starter 35 1X. I think that was a really useful race. You don't have to get rid of New York Breds throughout the winter, and you can kind of get another level into them. And I thought that was nice. I mean, it's like a place like Kentucky doesn't really have to get creative because they got so many horses that want to run, but they do such a good job. So like it has to be mentioned, like their office is top tier of a job that they do, and they do a great job, making people feel welcomed as well as, taking care of the people that have been there for a long time. So that's just another place who does it really well. I feel Indiana has a condition I like a lot. They have Indiana sired races. So there's Indiana bred horses, and there's also races for horses whose sires stand in Indiana. I think that's a really cool way to separate horses. Blonde always, they always have extremely creative conditions. You'll never see allowance races as stacked as you will at Oaklawn. Like some of their allowance races that they run could be like $400,000 stakes. So I think that has to do with getting creative in your conditions as well as, recruiting, which is also extremely important.
Yeah, it was funny. I met a guy, with Monty actually on Derby weekend, and he was from Naira, and he was there just like recruiting horses for New York, and that's
Right.
something you don't really think about, as a casual fan.
Yeah,
That's a major part of it too.
for sure. Huge part of it. Yeah, you see a barn at a racetrack and you're like, all right, well, they've got to leave there. Like Oaklawn's done. And they feel like that's a barn that could help out with the, field size in New York as well as be effective. And their racing secretary as well as their office is a tremendous job. So I'm sure whoever they're going to see over there was with good use.
For sure. I guess like when you first were going off to kind of bring it back, when you first were starting doing the multiple circuits thing, were you like really the first person to ever do that?
Yeah.
True innovation there. I guess like when you first were getting approached by, I guess were jockeys asking like you to take your book and you're like, yeah, but I can. You're allowed two per jurisdiction, right? Two jockeys per jurisdiction.
Yeah. Some racetracks you're allowed like two and above. Some are like, so Oklahoma, you're allowed three. Kentucky, two. Arkansas, two and an apprentice. New York, two and an apprentice. New Jersey, just two. Indiana's two and an apprentice. Texas doesn't have a rule. California's two and an apprentice. So like everywhere is different. So you just kind of gotta know the rules at the specific racetrack. How it started, I had who did I have at the time? When I started doing this, I had Miguel at the fairgrounds and I had Alex Kinchari at Turfway. And at Oaklawn, trying to remember who I had at that time. I want to say it was Israel Rodriguez. I think I had Israel at Oaklawn. I believe so. And I was doing all three from afar. I was living at the fairgrounds at the time, and I would like take trips to Oaklawn and Turfway. I was just doing it over the phone, and it really wasn't that hard. Like I would just check on my calls because at this time there was no Zoom. I would just check on my calls, and when things played out, they played out. I had some friends there. If I was double, if I was double, they would call me, and if there was open horses, they'd mention me. But they always knew who my calls were because I would call the office before and like, this is who I'm running in this specific race. Then COVID happened, and I couldn't get on the backside anywhere. So Miguel ended up coming to Oaklawn after he did a 2-week quarantine. Like also went to Oaklawn, but he went with a different agent. Israel had already went back home to uh, Puerto Rico because of the start of COVID. David Cabrera and I were good friends because I'd already been his agent. But I went to Kentucky and he wanted to stay on the Oklahoma Iowa circuit. So we'd split up for that year. And he always told me if I ever wanted my job back, just call him. And he was the leading rider at Will Rogers at the time. Because what was it like? Fauner, Arrieta was crushing. Will Rogers, Cabrera was crushing, and then Oakland was going. There was a bunch of riders there. I think those are like the only tracks that were running. And yeah, I called David and I said, look, I can't get on the backside of Churchill, but I'm going to work the Churchill meet. But I'm going to be able to go Lone Star because Texas's rules like you were able to get on the backside. It's like, so I want to be your agent over there and I'm going to keep working in Kentucky as well. And he was cool with it. So then I ended up getting up to 2 riders in Kentucky and I had 2 riders in Oklahoma. And then David went to Oakland again for the winter. And I had all this business. I was headed to Texas and I was like, I need somebody who can, ride those horses. That's when I got Rayleigh. And Rayleigh went down to Texas. So I was doing Rayleigh in Texas. I had him and Freddie Manrique. I had David at Oakland, and then I had Mena over at the fairgrounds. And just kept growing it from there.
At what point were you like, I kind of need to put like systems in place and get some help doing this stuff?
It's a good question. I guess that was like 3 years ago. No, 3 years ago. More so just because I met my wife and I wanted to do things with her that weren't horse racing related. Or I really would have, oh, I would have the time to do the stuff that kind of other people can handle, but I just wanted to spend a bunch of time with her. So
Yes. Well,
that's
congrats, and you guys recently got married.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's what happened essentially. I was like, I want to spend more time with her, and some of this I can pass on to other people, and it'll be just as effective.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably a process too to kind of let some responsibilities go. I'm sure at the beginning you were like a little hyper fixated. You do things a certain way, having to teach people and put systems in place. I know it's tough.
Yeah, for sure. Fortunately, I know all the people pretty well. I'm like, I knew who I was asking, and I knew that I thought they would be very good at it. So, it's like you said, it's a little worrisome because you want it done a certain way, but I also trust all of them. So it's been pretty smooth, thankfully.
100%. And then something that's like obviously the buzzword right now in all over the world is AI and kind of what it can do for all these different industries. Do you employ like any sort of, whether it's like agentic AI or like using LLMs? Like, is there anything that you're doing in terms of like adding AI to your mix to make you more efficient?
Working on it. I am. I had used AI a couple times when it came to like charting races, but it wasn't picking up as many of the charts that I wanted it to. So now I actually had a friend who sent me something the other day I'm about to dive into. So probably so I liked how fast it was happening, but it wasn't being done as thoroughly as I wanted it.
Yeah.
So
I've messed around with it. I've kicked around because I think it's useful, but it's like how much work do you want to put in up front to get it to where like it's actually
for
working?
sure.
And it's like, all right, like
Right. I'm doing is very thorough. You know what I mean? Like I'm going through a lot of different information. So like if I'm gonna use it, I don't want it to just speed things up and be like, oh, that was fast. Like I need it to be just as thorough as me.
yeah, it's fair. Take some time. It'll probably get there. It'll probably get there.
Yeah, for sure. No, we're in the early stages. So I like asking horse racing related questions though, and using horse racing terms to like, because the more that you use it, the better it's going to get at it. So I do like getting on there and just randomly throwing out some horse racing questions and terms just to like
Teach a little
keep
bit.
it thinking. Yeah, for you're just going to learn.
It's pretty cool. But is there any other places within horse racing in general where you think, you know, innovations utilizing that technology would be, useful?
Outside of horse
No,
racing?
inside of horse racing. So like whether it's like in the racing office, ticketing office, da 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 da, like all the other different, hats people wear than horse racing.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably it's probably used for I like literally every single sector. Like you said, horse racing's extremely behind when it comes to really the rest of the world. Like we operate a lot slower in progressing into new ideas. So something like an AI source would be absolutely massive, I'm sure.
Yeah. I always say, like, I think it'd be awesome on the handicapping side, especially for newbies when they're first getting in, because the number of times I've brought someone to the racetrack for the first time and handed them a program, and I gotta spend 15, 20 minutes just to teach them the basics. I feel like there's space there for sure that, we could utilize some of that technology to make the introduction to the game easier for people.
Yeah, they have that, was it
Yeah,
equineedge.com?
I usually put people there because it has a little bit of
Yeah,
that in it.
absolutely, like, that's so easy for people to, like, look at and understand. I don't know how, like, successful it is, but I'm sure it wins enough to where, like, it would keep people going, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, just go based off this," and I think that's a really good tool, actually.
I think it gives people, the idea that, like, they're kinda controlling it too, where it's super simple, you kinda can, like, sort based on different columns they have in there, and people can, nerd out, "Oh, I'm just betting based upon pace today, or I'm betting based upon class today," and it does a really
For
good
sure.
job of, like, introducing the basics of handicapping to the newbie. So I usually, like, start there, and then I'm like, "Alright, let's go to time form, start to understand, running lines a little bit," and then I kind of introduce them slowly to, like, see how far down the rabbit hole they wanna get with me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Well,
It's a lot for a new person, like, looking at a racing form is extremely intimidating.
yeah, and I think it's, like, another thing is, like, looking at condition book is also intimidating too, like, as, like, that's another a whole 'nother
Well,
ball of wax.
well, I guess I've just been looking at them for so long, because like, I learned how to read a condition book when I was 9, and I don't know, it's, like, it honestly is the thing that makes the most sense to me. I I don't know how to read much else on a condition book. I'm really good at numbers, so, like, terrible with words, but, like, numbers and condition books, I understand.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a unique skill you have for sure. I feel like I'm still, like, you know, I haven't even gotten my associate's degree in reading a condition book yet. You're probably on, like, the PhD level of it.
Yeah, I don't know, they're simple to me, but I look at a lot of them, so I guess it probably has something to do with it.
For sure. You're in every single day. I guess, like, on that point, like, the question I always like to ask people, I call it the magic wand question, is if you had a magic wand, you could change anything within horse racing. You have unlimited money, everyone's gonna buy in and follow your lead. Like, what are you gonna do to kind of, grow the game, kinda reverse the trend of, negative handle, negative race days sort of thing?
Uh, first, I mean, there's so many things, honestly, like selling it to the race fan, letting people know what's happening, that we're here. We just not enough advertisement out there for it, unfortunately. The other thing I would do is fan education. I think that would be huge. We have so much time in between races. I don't really understand why racetracks don't have booths or have a video playing explaining racing terms, showing them what the crop is, explaining the shoes, explaining medications, why certain medications are given to horses. I feel like everyone hears about a medication just automatically thinks that it means somebody's cheating. Like, every single person takes medicine. Animals, when they go to a veterinarian, like your home animal, they take medicine, like medicines for certain things, but nobody understands what they mean. Like that should be explained to the public. There's so many things, honestly. There really are. I think I'm not going back to the point earlier, like protecting trainers. I think that a massive issue we're seeing is a lot of trainers going away from training racehorses. And if we don't have people to train the horses, then how are we going to run races? Because there's not new trainers really coming in; they're leaving. And if all the horses keep going to the same trainers or less trainers, and then they don't run against each other, then we're gonna have less races, smaller fields. But they have a hard business. Like it's a losing. They can't make money doing it the way it's set up right now. They really cannot make money doing it. Like it's really hard to. It's just kind of like circulating money, but you can't really go forward unless something incredible happens. And it's so hard in horse racing to have something incredible happen. So I feel like for horse racing to last into the future, they really need better protection and help.
Yeah. I guess, like, based upon that, what's the one thing you would do to start that reversing the trend of, losing trainers?
I mean, simple things like trainers, when they win a race, like they don't get paid the purse from the racetrack. They have to bill out to the owner for that.
One thing Oakland has started doing that. I know, like, at
Yeah,
least
like
that's the only track that I
that's
know.
one of the yeah, it's not a lot of tracks that do that, but and I don't know if this is controversial. This is my opinion. Like, my opinion, that's never the owner's money. That was the racetrack's money that like the jockey earned, the trainer earned, and the earned having the horse. But like, I couldn't imagine as a jockey's agent having to bill out for my jockeys. Like, what if we lost with the favorite and you're not happy and you don't pay me? Like, those things can happen to trainers. Like, it wouldn't be the first time it ever happened if a trainer got shorted something like that. I feel like there's some really, really bad setups for trainers, and the incentive to continue training horses is just not there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's very low hanging fruit. I mean, Oakland did it, and I was kind of just happy. I was like, okay, it's one less thing for me to kind of worry about. I feel like on the opposite end of the spectrum, I spent 4 months as like a groom hot walker, down in Ocala, and I feel like I try to be the best I can to pay bills on time. So I know that they're busting their balls out there. Where I feel like you hear horror stories, people with like 20, 30 horses, not paying bills for months at a time, and it's like I don't know
Yeah.
how that's even
The
possible.
horses eat, and the trainers are the ones who have to foot that bill until they get paid. It's a really bad setup. And I watch a lot of Hong Kong racing. Like, they have to prove that they can pay for the horse before they're allowed to bring the horse in, and I think we should have something similar here. I really do.
Yeah, I know I've been following your Hong Kong, Instagram stories and some of the posts you
Yeah.
have there.
Oh, yeah.
I guess what initially drew you to that?
Oh, I like the transparency in their forms. I mean, every bit of information you could want is in there. So if you're willing to take the time and actually like dive into it, you can find some really, really useful prices.
Yeah, I guess, like, what's an example of something that they list in the program that they don't have in the US?
Like, if the horse is wearing a tongue tie, like, they have that. They have the times of the horse's gallops in the program. You can go on their website, you can watch the horse jog and gallop. They'll tell you if the horse swam in a pool or went to the track to train that day. Like, all the information that's on it's a ridiculous amount of information, and it's free.
Yeah, that to me is the number one thing that I'm always, banging my drum about. I want to
It's
change is free
amazing.
data.
And that's what you're competing against, like, you gotta catch up with it.
Yeah. I guess, like, what other sort of things from the Hong Kong jurisdiction do you think the US could benefit from imitating?
But they're all very different, I really think the biggest thing is the transparency, because, like, they have such a niche thing going. Like, there's only 1,200 horses there. It's only one racing circuit, so, like, they can never be the same thing. Though they're the same sport, they're being done so vastly different. But really, the transparency, I would think, is the biggest thing. Like, free information, and a lot of it is what people need. Because if you feel like you can dive in and handicap it, you're gonna feel good about your selection and not feel like everyone says like they got cheated. Like, people feel that way because they don't have enough information. But like, if you wanted to bet a basketball game, you could look up, let's say, what the Knicks are playing today, Josh Hart's rebounds. You can actually get real statistics for that for free on how useful he would be in this kind of matchup to whether or not you want to make that bet. You can't get that information for free in horse racing. And, you know, it's just there's just not enough transparency there.
I totally agree there. I think it's super frustrating too. Like, you're trying to even like it's crazy. I mean, even the people that are like in the game, you get charged. Like, I can't even imagine what your bill is every month for different service. Third manager's fixed per month, but like how many rags you're buying, how many like press forms you're buying, like it's got to be an astronomical amount of money that's like kind of just getting charged within the industry itself. That people are already kind of struggling to make ends meet. Like, you talk to the trainer's point of view, like I wonder if do the trainers even get, like, any free services like that? I kinda doubt it.
No, there's no free services.
It's like it's wild because I feel like if you're a racing secretary and you want to encourage, more something as easy as like, "Hey, like, here's the buyer par for, this condition lasts like, 3 times we ran it. Here's, the buyers of every single horse in your stable. They send it weekly, and just making it easier for them to do the quantitative side of things. 'Cause I'm sure that's, number 64 on the list of things they have to do, every single day. But it's like just simple things
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah, for sure. It would be useful.
Yeah, and from the gambling point of view, it drives you kind of nuts because even if you want to just play like one race, like all right, I'm gonna burn $5 just to kind of to gamble $20 on this. Probably not. Like, I've sat out days and like only want to bet like one race. And I have some time to handicap here, but I don't have a ton. I can't do the whole card. If I can only do like 2 races and I can't even put a pick three together, I'm like, it's probably just not worth my time. Where if I had it for free, and now I have Thrower Manager, so that's probably made my handle go up. But previously, I would just skip out because like I don't have it
Right, for sure. No doubt. Yeah, it's something that every other sport has. So even if it's like not as because I understand daily racing form there, first off, the number is way better than most of what's out there when it comes to actual speed rating, not like actual performance rating like Ragzin or Thorough Manager. When we're talking about speed ratings, theirs is much better than most. So I understand them having a charge and a premium, absolutely. But like there does need to be some kind of free information out there for horse gamblers and horse people as well.
for sure. Totally agree. All right, any other ideas you got for the improvement racing before we get into some rapid fire questions here?
Yeah, I mean, like the crop rule, I mean, it's ridiculous. It really is. And I don't know where the magic number of 6 came up, but it really doesn't make any sense to me. The penalties that come with it don't make any sense to me. The criminalizations of trainers over things that like really were attempts to be therapeutic. And again, it just kind of goes to the misinformation. You see this long name with a bunch of letters in it and you don't know what it means, but it says there was an overage. Like it's just constantly making people criminals. And this really only started happening when Heise came in. I really feel like at this big degree, like so much of our game is like people being guilty until proven innocent, and it's just not right, and it's just driving people away.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's one of those things that like on paper it's hard to argue, like safety, integrity. All right, like it's hard to argue when you put those words together, but it's kind of classic. Like be careful what you wish for in a sense, where I feel like before it was such the wild, wild west, and I don't even know. I still feel like there are people that are getting away with things, and it's just like helicopter, just picking things like randomly like out of a hat, like the way I liken to
For
people
sure.
is like now all of a sudden, there's like it's like if they installed cameras on sidewalks and started like sending, people, tickets in the mail
Yeah,
for jaywalking. It just
yeah.
gone like way too far in terms of that pendulum. Or I feel like there is probably a happy medium to meet, but
The vet track has been crazy too of recent. That's absolutely insane. Like, there's no reason why 10 plus horses should be vet scratched on one card at Keeneland. Like, what? That makes no sense. Like, how is there possibly 10% of the horses being lined up by these trainers who literally only make money when the horse wins? Like, that's how you make money. You can like keep money coming by placings, but you make money by winning. So these people have to bring over a healthy animal or you're not going to win. So like they're not going to put them in front of the vet if they feel like the horse isn't healthy. And then they have to scratch 10% of the horses running that day. Like like how does a horse ever break down then under that much regulation? Like it blows my mind. Like that should all come with a fine. Like if a horse breaks down, like how did the vet let that horse come by?
yeah, I think
It's just,
the crazy thing is like, it's just
it's a lot
one person too.
of fingers, a lot of pointing fingers. Nobody really wanted to collaborate. And unfortunately, if we don't collaborate, it's not going to be possible to push on, and that's sad because you and I are young. So
Yeah, I think that's probably the number one problem faced with horse racing, in my opinion, is the fact that there's so many different factions. There's all the different groups that like own the racetracks themselves, which all have different interests, whether they're like, owned by the public or owned, publicly traded company or like owned by one lady that like doesn't really like horse racing anymore. Like there's start with that, then you have like every single owner is like, independent, every single trainer's independent, every single jockey's independent. So like everyone's like constantly kind of fighting for their like piece of the pie. And but I feel like we're constantly just, like putting out like our own tripwires. We're like because we're all competitive in a competitive field, like we're trying to like push each other over, when in reality we're just all falling behind. We're all just getting pulled into the wake of like the deep vast ocean.
I'm with you.
So I feel like there is like some positive momentum. I don't think it's all like, doom and gloom. I do think there is like some positives to take some heists like that need to get ironed out like ASAP, ASAP.
Mm. So the premise of FISA is great. It's just who we have running it and the execution.
And we'll get there eventually. All right.
Hopefully.
Let's grind through some rapid fire and I'll let you go here. I appreciate you being flexible here in the time.
Sure.
This is a fun conversation.
Thank you.
All right. So these are all like one word, like one phrase kind of answers, but if we go off on a tangent with a story, that's all cool too. All right. So favorite racetrack.
Saratoga.
There. Favorite horse of all time could be living or departed.
I think the more because I watch a lot of old races now, and like I think Count Fleet or Native Dancer, but then Funny Side.
I kind of figured he would be thrown in there for sure.
Oh, yeah, thinking about the old ones, but I guess now live, I'm gonna go with Wilder because he was really cool, and I was with him for a long time.
Yeah, check that horse out. All right. What is your favorite race day to attend? So is it Oaks Day, Derby Day, Breeders' Cup Friday? And there's just the energy, being on the backside
Yeah,
that weekend is like,
I've never had a bad Derby day in my life.
yeah. I've
No, amazing, and like for me, like I want to win the Derby so bad somehow one day, so bad because I got to stand in that infield and look out to that crowd and like experience it with my father, and like it's like I want that so bad again. I just want that feeling so bad. I've never found it again in horse racing, and I love horse racing. I've found all kinds of great moments, but like the way that felt, like I've got an addiction for feeling that again.
how old are you when you said won the Derby?
7.
Oh man. Formative years
Yeah.
too. So that's burning your brain
Yeah.
forever.
Locked in, bro. Like I have literally an image in my mind if I look out at the grandstand and the noise and like it's just I want it again.
What was it like? So you're in what, like first grade?
Second grade.
Second grade?
Mhm.
What was it like going to school? Did you go to school on Monday?
It was nuts. Yeah, it was crazy.
I can't even
It was
imagine.
crazy. Yeah, it actually got kind of bad though, because I don't know if you know about it, but like they had that scandal where they thought my dad was carrying a machine. That article got published in the Miami Herald, and I was growing up in Miami at the time, so I actually had to get pulled out of school and all that. It was pretty crazy times.
Yeah, the story on JK+1, for anybody listening, go listen to it because it's an awesome story and it ends in a very, very good way of the open head
Yeah,
for his
for sure.
picture.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is that is a
yeah,
badass like mic drop kind of moment for sure.
yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
That's badass. All right, last two could be horse racing related, could be un-horse racing related. When you hear the word successful, who is the first person you think of?
It's a good question. I gotta think about that. Probably my boy Garrett. That'd be my guy, Garrett.
All right. Who is it?
Yeah,
Give us a bio blast.
like he's my college roommate.
Sure, OG.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Garrett.
Oh, what's he do?
He's got a company. I really don't even understand what it does, but it makes a lot of money. And he's got his wife, and he's like the best person I know.
Is he still mobile?
Yeah, he lives in Louisville. Yeah,
I'm sure I'll catch up with him during Derby time.
for sure.
That'd be awesome. All right. The last question is any advice to your younger self?
Keep working, keep grinding.
It all works out.
Honestly, it's not easy, but if you have a passion, you love it, just it's gonna work out. Because it took me like literally 6 years of like failing till it finally worked out. So like just keep grinding. There was a lot of times I wanted to give up or just thought it never was gonna happen for me. So
Keep going. I think it's the
yeah,
beautiful part of life. I think the fact that you had to go through that struggle, like I said, is probably the reason why you're able to kind of innovate and be, you know, have multiple circuits rolling at the same time. So it's the beautiful part of life, I think.
yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, well, this is super fun, Jose. We will get you back on a pod sometime soon. Hope we catch up here in Louisville in 2
Yeah,
weekends. Kind of crazy.
bro, I'm leaving tomorrow.
Hell yeah.
I'll be there. Yeah,
Awesome.
hit me up.
All right. Thanks, Jose.
Yeah.